last time I saw this man was at the Fiesta Bowl. Saw him before the game with my son, Coop and I. Ran into Bruce Feldman. And now here we are, Bruce, and didn't see what was coming that day. Did you see what was coming that day?
No, I did not. The only thing I will say is, unlike you, I did a couple of their games this year, so I knew they have a lot of athletes, and they have a lot of speed. And so when you see them in person, you're like, okay, that team doesn't look like a team that should have been preseason picked like number 7 in the Big 12.
And so when I saw you that day, I was feeling good about having a ticket to the national championship game at SoFi, and now I'm going to see a bunch of purple there on Monday night. So let's just jump into it. Your thoughts, and what you wrote about in The Athletic, and what you wrote about, not in The Athletic, talked about on Fox Sports about the Fiesta Bowl, why you saw what you saw, what you gleaned from that game.
Yeah, what surprised me was that Michigan did not. Yeah, it was the first play of the game. Obviously, Donovan Edwards goes for 54 yards up the middle. After that, they did not run the ball that well, and that surprised me. I thought they would wear out TCU and wear them down in the second half. There was a couple things that happened that I was like, okay, if you put these things together, this is a bad sign for your team. Not one, but 2 pick sixes. That's hard to overcome. The other thing was they had 3 trips inside the 5-yard line and got 3 points.
That's it. The first one was some weird Ann Arbor special play that I'd never seen them run.
Too cute, right?
You would think. And then, that's one of those, like, okay, they might have seen something on film. They thought they had them. That's the one play that they used. You could just toss that out. But to fumble on the 1/2-yard line after a touchdown was removed by parsing things in replay was particularly difficult to swallow. That was a gut punch. That was a total gut punch. Would have been 14-10. Instead, it was 14-3. TCU made it 21-3 right after that, and Michigan just couldn't. Every time they got close to digging out of the hole, they gave up a huge touchdown as well. Because TCU is really damn good, man.
They are good.
They're a championship football team.
They have a lot of speed.
They do.
I mean, Darius Davis, number 11, he didn't even, he had a nice kick return. Like, he might be the fastest guy in college football. Quentin Johnston, people know about. Like, he was on my freaks list this past year. He will be a first-round pick. He's every bit as talented as any receiver in the country. And then the thing with Max Duggan is, talk to coaches in the Big 12, it's almost like he's the old single-wing quarterback, but because they have some receivers, he can give them 50-50 balls, and they're going to win. And I thought, his numbers, especially early in the game, because it was the one deflection that Sainer still picked off that probably should have been caught. Like, his numbers don't show, I think, how well he played in that game. And the biggest thing to me is that team has an incredible amount of confidence and belief. And so one of the games that I was a sideline reporter for, they played at Baylor, and it came down to the last second field goal, and it was this crazy rush to get on the field.
Yeah, right.
And they got it off, and they made the kick. And Sonny was super calm about it afterwards. And a lot of the players weren't, but I just think you have a great kind of dynamic with them. They came after Gary Patterson. I think that he's a really good coach, but I think a lot of the players needed some new life and new energy. And Sonny Dykes has brought that, and they are responding. And that team of destiny vibe where a lot of crazy stuff happens and the players are the ones who buy into it. I mean, really, that's all that kind of matters. It doesn't matter if you or I buy into it. In fact, it probably helps if we don't.
That's right.
So
that's the yummy rat poison that's referred to maybe by
yeah, and I'm sure he wishes.
Saban.
I'm sure Nick Saban felt like he deserved it, but they definitely, win or lose that game, they definitely belonged in the playoff. And I will pick Georgia to win because I just think it's going to be they're a supersized version of Michigan in a lot of ways. But it wouldn't shock me if TCU won. I mean, not after what we've seen from them.
Bruce Feldman here from Fox Sports and The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about Michigan here. First up, the quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. What a photograph you took of him, sort of similar to Stephon Diggs, watching the Chiefs celebrate an AFC championship game after they lost it, after the Bills lost it. And you had a photograph of J.J. McCarthy looking at the celebration on the field. Walk me through. Did you talk to him afterwards? Walk me through that whole
not
thing.
In that moment. I talked to some other people on the field there, but I didn't want to. You could clearly tell he was in a moment right there. I am not the usually take the photograph, take the video guy on the field. You know, I saw some people way after the fact go, hey, this is a great photo. And I'm like, well, credit Apple, because I can't even get the timer fixed when we lose power on the remote, on the microwave. So it was just an amazing moment to sit there and go, wow. Look, and you just think the fact of this player who I think has you know, we've seen a lot of stuff you'd see, you know, in I think this is the 6th game I think I've done of a Michigan this season. You know, JJ before the game, you know, kind of in his Zen moment. There's a lot of stuff where I feel like this is a guy who has an awareness of what's going on around him. And I think to take in that of what they saw, you know, I suspect this is not the end for JJ. This will be the callback to, you know, what is going to happen, I think, next year. Because I imagine this is a kid with supreme confidence. Like, just about him. I did a story going into the Michigan-Ohio State game, and in it there was some what I thought was like, whoa, bulletin board material from JJ in there, and he backed it up entirely in the game, you know. And so I'm curious to see what JJ McCarthy 3.0 will be after this one. But yeah, that was an amazing scene to be a part of, and I think for the team that had immense confidence in itself, and I saw that up close. And we talked about this on your show maybe the last time I was here about what the attitude of the Michigan Wolverines were like on the field in Columbus. I think they were, from everything I heard, was complete confidence, even when they were down, you know, 15 points at halftime or down 18 points before that. We're going to win this game. I think in the second half, they were convinced we're going to win this game. I think they were stunned that they didn't.
+1 on that. And let's get to the whole enchilada here, the elephant in the room, and that's the coach. You just mentioned how J.J. McCarthy, you look forward to seeing what the next version of him is. And the question is, will Jim Harbaugh even be there? So let's take it one at a time, because I know you and some of your colleagues co-bylined a piece saying that if it's a done deal if he's offered an NFL job.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, did you sense a coach after that game as one who was tapped out, leaving?
I don't know on the answer to that. I mean,
what sense you get?
The sense I get, and this is from people who know him much better than me, is that if he's offered, he will leave.
Doesn't matter the job? Really? Doesn't matter the job? Like if he doesn't have full control of the roster, or he doesn't, like if it, you know, the owner relationship, the quarterback's there or not there, the picks are not there, maybe, like it doesn't matter. Somebody offers him a job, he's gone.
I think if the dynamic were different, you know, with the Broncos from way before, whereas like, could he and John Elway, if they were like, how well would they coexist in that dynamic? Mm-hmm. But I think some of these situations, you know, the Panthers, people can go, well, you know, David Tepper just hired a college guy. Well, Jim Harbaugh's really not a college guy.
Correct.
Because that was a first-time head coach. Jim Harbaugh was a wildly successful NFL head coach.
And quarterback.
Yeah, and quarterback. But let's put that aside for a second. Jim Harbaugh, people may forget this, that the 49ers before he got there hadn't had a winning season in 8 years. In year one, they went to the NFC title game. In year two, they went to the Super Bowl. In year three, they went back. He was 44-19 as an NFL head coach. And that isn't in like the Sun Belt. That isn't in the Big Ten West.
Sun Belt.
Right? I mean,
Silicon Valley. That's where it was.
Yeah, we've seen coaches bomb going to the NFL. That isn't like, I'm surprised nobody offered him last year, right? Like for people, and I get why Michigan fans like, oh, here we go again. They roll their eyes and they think it's clickbait. Last year, I remember having, you know, reporting this. Jim went on signing day, no less. Nobody leaves. Didn't get offered the job. They hired Kevin O'Connell. That has worked out great for the Vikings. It worked out great for Michigan, right?
Because of course. And he also said, Bruce, that the door was closed for the NFL. And I understand when a coach says that and a, you know, to use an old phrase that I had growing up, that and a token will get you on the subway. You know what I mean? But I just find it difficult to believe that it doesn't matter where or who or the front office setup or the amount of talent that's already in the locker room or what quarterback is there, what quarterback could be going there.
But I don't think
it doesn't matter that if he's just offered a job, whatever's going on at Michigan is so either, you know, mission accomplished in his mind or whatever wasn't mission accomplished in the NFL is calling him so much that
I think
it
it's
doesn't
the latter.
matter.
I think it's the latter. It is the I have not won a Super Bowl. I mean, the fact that he lost the Super Bowl to his brother, I don't know how much that sits with him, but the fact that he was so close and didn't win it. I mean, if you're now, they did not win a national title since he's been at Michigan. I get that. But if he's leaving now, there was nothing fluky about it. I mean, they kicked the heck out of their arch rival in Columbus. Nobody thought it was going to happen other than the Michigan people. They dominated the Big Ten. I mean, I think that's about as close to a mission accomplished as you probably can hope to get. Now, I'm not saying if he does come back, he has no chance to win a national title, but I think they are the bully of the Big Ten right now. I mean, this would, if he's looking at which is the most important thing to me,
yes,
winning a national title or winning a Super Bowl, you're not going to win a Super Bowl at Michigan.
So if the answer, if that is truly the question for Jim Harbaugh, what's more, what would I rather have? Which is kind of ridiculous, like asking a parent, like which child would you want to be more successful? Truly is an unfair question to ask. But this is Sports Talk Radio. What the hell? Would you rather have a national championship or a Super Bowl? You believe, based on your reporting and being around, you'd say Super Bowl. And if that's the case, then he should go. He should go.
I also think, Rich, and I would ask you this.
Yes.
I think for a lot of people at Michigan, maybe this is going to sound crazy, but I think beating Ohio State the way they did carries so much weight compared to I think people wanted to vomit every time they heard Urban Meyer talk about 7-0 in that.
I want to vomit every time I see Urban Meyer on I don't want to get you in trouble with your bosses.
We're good.
Sitting there on at any rate. But no, that's the point, though, is that, yes, the last 2 years have been great. I want to build off it. And I want to build off it with him, and I want him to be the guy to lift the trophy. But then again, he was my first quarterback when I first arrived at Michigan, so I have more of an emotional tie to that. He was the quarterback in my first year at Michigan and watched him through. And Chris and I we were just having fun here at the top of our show talking about this in advance of you arriving. One of the first things I did on this show from this chair into this microphone when we came on the air in 2014 was for me to pound the table for him to join Michigan.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying, forget it. He's not going to do it. And then he did. So I clearly have that sort of biases here. So when it comes down to it, though, what do you know about a plan B? Where would Michigan go for that?
My hunch, and I don't know this for a fact, but my hunch is Michigan would look very closely at Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore is a really, really highly regarded coach inside the Michigan program. He's the offensive line coach and the co-offensive coordinator. They've won back-to-back Joe Moore awards. That had never happened anywhere for the best O-line in the country. And Sharon Moore has had as much to do with Michigan's turnaround as any of those assistant coaches. There's been some interest in him at some other Power 5 schools that really never kind of got off the ground at that point. Mm-hmm. But I think for people inside the program, and look, they just had a really good transfer class that they're bringing in. A bunch of those guys are offensive linemen. I think that would be the best case for continuity because of how people feel about Sharon Moore. Look, we've seen at Ohio State, Ryan Day hit the ground running there. Certainly at Notre Dame with much less time. I mean, Marcus Freeman was really only at Notre Dame for 1 year, but I think we've seen schools go to somebody inside the program that they feel comfortable with, who they see as a rising star. I definitely think Sharon Moore is that guy. The other part of it is the guys who I think normally would have been the candidates you would have expected Michigan to look at, who are like the Big Ten, big school caliber guys. Matt Rule took the Nebraska job, and Luke Fickell took the Wisconsin job. I'm not sure who's out there who you could say, oh, I'm that much more convinced that they're going to build off of what Michigan has, because whoever they would hire if Jim Harbaugh does leave, if it's not Sharon Moore, or if it's not Mike Hart, but I think Sharon Moore would be the one internal guy, you probably lose a lot of those guys inside. And I don't think you're building off of it if Jim Harbaugh leaves and you bring in some outsider. And there's no guarantees that the outsider is going to do, because we've seen Michigan get the fit wrong. Look, I think, Rich Rod, for whatever people in Ann Arbor thinks, is a really good college football coach. It didn't work there. Brady Hoke had success. He knew the program, had a little success, didn't work there. It's not you know, it's not an easy place when you have Ohio State where they are. You have Penn State. Now we feel like they're ascending again. Look what they did in the Rose Bowl. Look what how they're recruiting. And then you got Lincoln Riley and USC coming in. It's like, it's not an easy job to do where they are right now. And I think as much as anything, that's why I think they would give serious consideration to Sharon Moore, because I think they like what he is about and what he's helped them build.
Bruce Feldman here, a few more minutes left with him here on the Rich Eisen Show, Fox Sports and The Athletic. Am I the only one sitting here wondering why these college football semifinal games are played on New Year's Eve? Because if we're talking, again, maybe I'm off, but is there anybody who's in charge that has a problem with the fact that there was a remote tug of war in households all across the country as to whether to watch the ball drop or the end of that game, Ohio State and Georgia? I mean, come on, man. What is happening right there?
You are boxing them in. You are the NFL guy, and because the NFL is such a massive ratings monster, I think they when the calendar falls the way it falls, they're in a tricky spot with that.
But it's multiple times it's happened on New Year's Eve.
I know.
2 years in a row. And it's just like, what are they doing? Why can't they? I understand. Why can't they do it on a Friday night, right? The 30th. What's the point? What's the big deal? Because you've got weeks of buildup right now.
They have convinced themselves that this was going to be some kind of new tradition that they were going to start.
It's a terrible tradition. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep on interrupting.
No, I don't.
To try
look,
and
the part I don't love about
right.
this is this, like, the calendar's already kind of weird that time of year when things kind of sneak up on you in terms of that. You know, there's like never a consistency to it. You know, they've adopted Monday night as there's a lot of weird stuff. Like if I go down this rabbit hole of like how they've scheduled this, and you know, it's almost like this is the best they think they can do with it. You know, and look, if you want logic to dictate how the college football world works, you're going to pull all your hair out.
But there's enough smart people to figure this thing out. I mean, I don't know, man. I at least in my house, I was in charge of the previous remote button. I was hitting, you know, the previous button to show my kids who were interested in the ball drop. Look, it's not dropping yet. Look, you know, from my
give them an iPad.
My son,
give them an iPad. They can put it on that. Maybe that's me having two 8-year-olds in the house. Yeah,
good parenting skills. Okay, give him a
Just
tablet.
Be careful with the profanity when you say the
I understood that. Okay, so nobody's talking about it, is what you're saying.
I mean, if they are, I'm not hearing it.
Okay, very good. All right. And so the national championship game between Georgia and TCU, break it down for me before I let you go.
You know, I think it comes down to if TCU can run the ball as close to as well as they did the other night, they have a chance. Now, they're going to need help. I don't know if they're going to need 2 pick sixes from Stetson Bennett, but they're going to need help. I mean, Georgia is I hate to say the term, like they are like a supersized version of Michigan, right? They're super physical. They have a lot of guys on defense. They have more NFL top level talent on defense than certainly I think Michigan does. But you know, they have it's interesting because like both teams excel using the tight end. They do it differently, but especially Brock Bowers, he is a big weapon. Georgia's tight end, much different than how Michigan uses their guys. But I think that's the challenge. But again, TCU was so loose in playing with the house's money. You know, if there is a game at halftime, I'm not saying Georgia's going to get super tight, but like it's really hard to repeat. And you know, they needed like a missed field goal, obviously, to get to this game. I think to me, there is no aura of invincibility on this team. Like one of my friends had brought up, well, maybe this is kind of like the first Miami team coming out of nowhere to beat Nebraska. Because I remember like that Nebraska team, you know, Turner Gill and Mike Rozier and Irvin Frye, that was like team of the ages that they were billing. I don't feel like this Georgia team is quite as stacked as the one we saw last year.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, there's so many guys playing on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays right now from that Georgia team in particular.
And this is a really resilient TCU team. Like if they give up a huge play, well, we just saw that. We just saw them give up a huge play right out of the gate. And they didn't give up a touchdown. And I just think they're going to take a lot of punches on the chin, and if they lose, they lose. But they are a dangerous team because they have so much belief. Like, I'm not surprised the spread is double digits. I think it probably should be.
You have an issue with that, right?
Yeah, why TCU? We've seen them play, 5, 6, 7 ranked teams this year, beat all of them, and they're 13-point dogs. Really? 13?
I think a lot of it has to do with just the recruiting rankings. And you just see so many 5-star guys on the field. Like, Michigan it was like a little bit like Michigan to Ohio State. It was like this was flipped kind of thing, this game, where Michigan was the big underdog in that game, and they played with the chip on their shoulder, and then TCU came in with the chip on their shoulder. I could easily talk myself into thinking TCU is going to pull the big upset.
I don't know, man. I saw it with my own 2 eyes, and that team is physical. Whatever Sonny Dykes is selling, they are bought and sold, man. Yeah. And they're tough. They are really tough and mentally tough. And on top of it, too, that fan base is loud. That building was deafening, and they're going to show up in Los Angeles. Not that Georgia's not.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a ton of purple in that SoFi Stadium, which is one of the loudest buildings I've ever been in anywhere.
And they are
I would be.
Which this one thing hasn't happened in a long time where, when it's Ohio State versus, Alabama, with the exception of LSU that year, It's been a long time since somebody else was kind of a darling of college football playing in that game. It was always like when Clemson first got there, but after a while, people got really sick of Dabo in a hurry, and it was in Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Those programs are hard for everybody else to root for. I don't know if this doesn't really matter much either, but the idea that there's going to be so many people pulling for TCU, I don't know if it's in the building how much that'll matter.
It's going to be that place was half purple in Arizona,
and
if not
some,
more.
right?
If not more, I was surprised at how much purple there was.
Well, we know there's going to be a lot of people from Michigan with tickets from that game probably dumping them. So,
well, I'm one of them. I'm going. I'm still taking my son. We're
prices
going.
have been dropping all week because it seems like the Michigan people are unloading.
Yeah. I'm sure they are.
I don't know. You got me on that one. All I'm saying is that I saw that TCU team, and I watched the game when I got home, at least the third and fourth quarter, except for the last kick, because we were watching the ball drop, by the way, and so that TCU can win this game. I'm surprised. 13 points, really?
I also think, Bruce, kind of interesting about this game is the quarterbacks. This isn't Jameis Winston versus Marcus Mariota. This isn't 2 Heisman Trophy winners. It's 2 guys whose stories we know. Like Max Duggan was a backup before this season started, and Stetson Bennett was a walk-on.
Yeah, he's going to be in charge of your 401k in 2 years,
That's what
right?
I'm saying.
Yeah, with Max Duggan, there were coaches who faced him this year in the Big 12 who were actually like, we want him to not get knocked out of the game because they thought Chandler Morris, the backup, gave them more problems. Now, those teams lost to him, by the way. So ended up losing.
Man, I love talking to you, Bruce. Happy New Year, sir. Thanks for joining. It's good to see you. It's great to see you again. Lots has happened in between the 2 times we've seen each other. Check out Bruce Feldman, Fox Sports, and The Athletic, and then, of course, on Twitter as well. Thanks for coming in. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.